Welcome again to the Malice Experience. I am, of course, Mr. Malice. I know you guys just saw my ugly fucking mug, but here it is again. So take it in. Enjoy. This time around, we are joined once again by Nate Bales. How's it going, man?
We're good, man. It's good to be back. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you back, man. So I know you guys, like the last time that we had Nate on, you guys loved it, right? You guys loved having Nate on. And there was a lot of things that I wanted to touch base on, that I wanted to talk to him about, that we didn't have an opportunity to talk about last time. Because just the conversation was just that fucking good. It just went all over the place, and we covered a lot of different stuff. So figured I'd bring him back on before, we kind of lost the that mojo that we were having the last time around. So the first thing, Nate, that I want to bring up. So earlier today, I was actually looking you up because I had a couple of hours, and I was gonna throw up some, I was gonna advertise this, and I was gonna throw up some, stuff on Twitter and stuff like that. And obviously didn't get the chance to do it because none of that shit went up. But in the course of looking for you, I found you on IMDb or whatever the hell that thing is for movies. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell was he in? Right? Am I talking to an actor, a famous actor, and I don't know it? So I click on it, and there's a credit on there for a thing. I actually paid for Shudder today just to watch this fucking thing, by the way. So there's a TV show, a Shudder original, which is Cursed Films, and he is on the episode. They interview him on the episode about the movie The Omen, and Nate gets into some very interesting concepts, about basically through the act of producing a film, actually opening gateways to entities just simply by creating a film about, demonic energies, that are demonically kind of directed. And so I really want to start this out by picking your brain on this. Because I look at Hollywood as the bane of our existence as people in the left-hand path, right? Hollywood has misrepresented us since the beginning of film. Since the first fucking horror movie, right? We have been misrepresented as, the pinnacle of absolute evil and wrongdoing. So how is it? Explain, how does that work? How does is it just is it indirect energy? Are there that's bringing this stuff out because it's just a subject matter, or how's it work?
I think it's a little unique, I think, for every production. I remember in doing that one in particular with Cursed Films, they were diving into a few notoriously cursed films in particular, which were Exorcist, Omen. Of course, they got into Poltergeist, but I know that we had a pretty long discussion about some of the underlying synchronicities in The Exorcist in particular. And a lot of people are aware that that's gets into being involved about the demon Pazuzu. And it was interesting in really looking back into that film to be able to watch how things kind of coalesce in a production sense, in the same alliance. How if a practitioner is endeavoring to work with a particular entity, there's this preparatory immersion that goes on. So a lot of research, a lot of connection on multiple levels begins to simmer and boil with those particular intelligences. And it's interesting because you could have a movie that's that somebody's just concocted, and written about this. It could be some particular entity that they just came up that seems to fit the role of the screenplay that they're producing. But then you get some of these films that actually tap into some of these more ancient, accessible intelligences, these ancient deities that have been brought forth into this dimension through many different avenues. And with The Exorcist in particular, um, the whole point of that movie is to recreate and make contact with that particular entity in as tight and cohesive of an aspect as possible. And even in just the what we were talking about, the preparatory immersion on the production side, there's a lot of that research that goes into there and looking what this entity is, who it's been, um, everything about it, every angle about it, and even just the name of that entity being vocalized by so many people that are concentrated on this production and making themselves open and accessible to that intelligence. It it becomes this dual magnet. It brings you closer to them, and it brings it closer um, to the people involved in that. And I remember watching that film, and even just with the open intuition of burying myself deep into that flick, was able to feel the signature essence of Pazuzu coming through that production into my living room, into a close proximity with me and my senses. And it's interesting because that's not the only film that's embarked on really closing that intimate of a gap, but just even endeavoring into that opens up portals and gateways and just wormholes of connection, of bringing that essence of what Pazuzu is into a very real, close and contextual contact with the people who are involved and in throwing themselves into the production of that film to capture the essence of that. And that was the main one, I would say, that really caught me as far as it being some stark synchronicities in there. And then there were definitely some similar ones with the Omen. But I myself, it's funny because even in looking back into my own personal history of what I think some of the initial draws and attractions to the occult were through film like Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead was a big one for me. Being about a 10, 11 years old, and I just remember the essence of that movie, especially when it gets through its halfway mark and really kind of starts to open the corridor into that witch haggis in that movie Pumpkinhead, and just everything that she embodied. It's a very adept, wise woman of the craft, and there were subtle little things that just spoke out and reached out to me, that this character that they've embodied in this story is a bridge to the powers of darkness,
Mm-hmm.
and it really penetrates, I think, the subtle layers of what's obvious on the top. A lot of people may look at these films and just brush it off and be like, "Yeah, it's bullshit," or "Yeah, there's a story there and they've made a connection." But the same synchronicity comes with actually being a practitioner of these arts. Once you decide to actually center yourself and immerse yourself and push aside doubt and all of the trivial, laughable things,
Mm-hmm.
and you really seek to generate and establish that connection, that's when little things start revealing themselves and
Mm-hmm.
popping out from in between the lines. And it was interesting too, because in that movie, The Exorcist, there was an actress named, I believe it was Eileen Dietz, and she's the one that there's a few clips that the director had created where it's just supposed to be shadow, real fast clips of the entity Pazuzu with the white face, crazy teeth, and the big wide eyes. You kind of see it for just a
Mm-hmm.
flash. Um, so Eileen had immersed herself into that role, really capture the essence of what Pazuzu was, that underlying core darkness. And she's trying to capture it to make it as real as possible for the sake of the film in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was years later, in fact, just a few years ago, that I came across her on Facebook, and I came across a post that she had, and there were some stills and some snapshots that she had taken. She had she had done a few of those stills where it's kind of the ghostly essence of Pazuzu in this makeup and this pale white makeup, dark eyeliner, all that stuff. And then there were some where I think that she had stepped in as Reagan with the full contacts and the necrotic face to capture some of the parts that Linda Blair was just too young, I think, for some of those scenes to and being appropriate for. But even in gazing into those photos are alive. When I gaze in, when I scry into those captures of what it was that she was endeavoring to connect with, that signature essence of Pazuzu bleeds through, and I can feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it distilling around me. I can feel the longer that I keep that connection established, I could feel that distilling even within me and just holding that there. And she had this post where she had a few of these, I think these resin statues of a Pazuzu made, and they were beautiful. I mean, they totally captured the essence of the stone statue of that particular demon that was captured in the desert in the beginning of that film. And she had signed the bottom of those, and she was selling them, I think, for around $75. She might still be selling these, in fact. Um, but the interesting thing is that I started some communication with her through Messenger and was talking with her, and I was like, "Yeah, if you still got any of these resin statues, I'd love to have one." She's like, "Yeah." She goes, I'd still have a few boxes of those, and if you're interested, yeah, it'll be this much, and then shipping, all that stuff." And so it was about a week later, I got this, received this resin statue of Pazuzu that she had signed on the feet. She also included a few. I think promotional glossies that she had from back a long time ago in doing The Exorcist, and she dedicated and signed it and all that stuff. But it was interesting because even just having that statue on my desk, it started to radiate the sphere of the essence of Pazuzu in my home, just unbound. And Pazuzu is a demon of the southwest storms of chaos, bringing the locust to devour the harvest of just ancient chaos. And it was only a few days of having that statue, and I didn't do anything ritual with it too. I didn't go through any ritualization to anchor the essence of Pazuzu within this idol as an open gateway. No evocations, nothing. But just having this effigy of Pazuzu definitely brought that open gateway into my home, and I started watching things unwind and slip into a very chaotic state. In particular, it was with a washing machine that we had at the house. Perfectly good washing machine, just took a shit out of nowhere. I ended up going down to Lowe's and find another good one to order. These dudes end up delivering it in a few days. They go hook it up. Thing's broken. Won't hold any water. Just we fill it up for the first time. After they leave and they ran a few tests on it, which it was working fine, they leave, fill this thing up to wash some clothes in it, and it just starts flooding. It's just out. So I go back to the store, make arrangements. Hey man, that one you sent me is all fucked up, and have them come pick it up. I'll show you it's fucked up. And, anyway, they come back and pick it up, and by then I had picked out a different one to have them replace it with. Different brand, something on the same tier of quality. And they brought that one back up. They brought this second one back up, and didn't work. It didn't work at all. So it was after that second one, I really kind of started to open myself up, like something's afoot here, and it's this undercurrent that is invisible, but if you adjust your senses and reach out and connect with it, you can start to see what's going on in the undercurrent underneath the surface. And I could feel that viral influence. It was just coming from this radiating from that statue of Pazuzu. And putting that together, just realizing, oh shit, I have this this open conduit to the essence of this particular demon just running rampant through my household. That's something that I need to get a grasp on. And I went through a process of just containing it and binding its essence. Not anything in an antagonistic way against Pazuzu, but just really kind of closing that off. It kind of reminded me of walking around with something that's radioactive, and all of the subtle effects that can happen by having that in the open, in a place that is not appropriate to host that type of energy. So I went through this containment process and just restricted it, and everything started to find its settled place after that. The chaos, the storms, the little other things that were going around, everything just started to slowly quiet. And when they brought that third washing machine, everything worked great. But it was interesting because Eileen was somebody who she's not a practitioner to my knowledge, but she worked extremely intimately on that production, doing everything that she could to embody that particular entity.
Mm-hmm.
And even with her just laying a marker foot and signing that particular statue that she sent, it seemed to bridge that connection and make an extension of everything that she had anchored and really brought into her own sphere, even back in the 70s.
So it wasn't the
Time and
statue, it was
space.
her.
It was her through. It's kind of like she had transferred that from her in her sphere of her life by signing that effigy of that likeness of Pazuzu. It was an empowering, awakening factor, and I could feel it. I could feel it in the photos that she had sent. I could feel it through the effigy. When I sat down and had gathered my attention on what this was and what this active conduit was. But it had, even that had brought me into retrospect with even the film production, and it wasn't surprising at all. There's definitely ancient forces that even just vocalizing and uttering their name for us to draw this connection. And everything beyond that becomes this complementary, enhancing catalyst that just starts to bring the sphere of the essence of what that particular power is into the sphere of what the production was. And, like so many other things, people can brush it off as coincidence, but familiar eyes can look and they can recognize the synchronicity there. Start to go, yeah, you are riding high with the essence of what this particular intelligence is. You've opened that gateway, and it is wrought through everything that you are doing, and having that subtle background influence through the undercurrent of everything that's going on. And same thing with the Omen, in just the intensity of what the subject matter was in there, at least to myself, and recognizing a lot of the things that had gone on in the production of that. I saw it as synchronicities of opening up the conduit to what those forces are, and the influence. It's a double swinging door, and so many will always, it's bullshit, and it's just coincidence. All the weird shit that may have happened on set, or to the actors that have made this commitment to become as close and intensified of a vessel for those forces of which the subject matter is focused. So it was fun, man. I had a great time doing that production, or at least that interview for the production of Cursed Films. And they had a lot of different people weigh in with their own perspectives, their own opinions on things. But I felt very strongly about the synchronicity of forces being contacted that a lot of people would, I think, blow off as bullshit or a joke, or just not recognize the connotations there.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I mean, that's definitely. I find that interesting. Like, I mean, and I like the way that you tell. Like the way you talk about it. So it's like there's like that twist at the end, like towards the end, like, because I was sitting here thinking, well, it's the statue, right? And it's like, no, it was the signature, it was the connection, to the person who was trying to embody this entity. For however long the production of the film was going. And That's some crazy shit.
It is crazy. It is crazy. I've because I've come across effigies of particular entities and demons that are just they're hollow, they're vacant. Um, there's a lot of potential for, I think, for opening up the gateway for that actual intelligence to take residence there.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and there's a lot of appropriate methods to do that. But it's funny when you kind of see these organic circumstances happen almost kind of like dominoes.
Mm-hmm.
So Eileen had found herself involved in the production where very strong, substantial contact was generated with just the essence of what Pazuzu was, and the film with that, and had no doubt, I think, touched everybody in that production to a different degree. Some much more than others, but the particular role that she had in that production, Eileen, was her job to encompass, to be the embodiment of Pazuzu. So she had opened herself up in every way, shape, and form to recreate on film living essence of what that intelligence was, what it would be like in a raw capacity. And that's not something that just dissipates over time. Certain connections with these forces will always be there once they've been generated. You can go through methods, I think, to try to shut the doors, and eradicate those connections to a degree, but it's never all the way. And that's something that's almost kind of like a living scar that she walks with, and that is always going to be that connection to the living essence of what Pazuzu is. So when she signed the bottom of that foot, it was just like she had a wand, and the essence had traveled through her arm, through her intent, through the tip of that pen into that perfect molded effigy of what the embodiment of Pazuzu was, in a statuified vessel, and it came right to my house. and I loved it. And there's I won't get into too many things, but there's in recognizing the intensity of which Pazuzu had a residence within that particular effigy. I embarked to utilize it in other ways that are appropriate for that as a magician. But
Mm-hmm.
I won't get into that. But it's very intense. I think the connection between these very real forces and the high caliber productions out there that seek to emulate them. That contact, it's just like two strong magnets, and they do find their way to fusing together. And I think it just takes a specific set of eyes to be able to look into that situation and start to connect the dots.
No, definitely. Well, I mean, I think the thing is like, I mean, I think generally speaking, you know, I mean, when I watched that episode of that show on Shudder, I mean, they talked a lot about coincidences, and then they had this other person on there. Can't remember his name. They titled him a witch. That was it. He had mentioned something that, you know, is very true, I think, about people within the occult in general, is that we don't see coincidence. Like we see kind of like cause and effect.
Right.
You coincidence. Like I think I fully believe this. I think the more that you look at a situation, you will begin to understand that there is no coincidence. Like I mean, you get what you put in, or in this case, rather, you get back what you put out, and it's just cause and effect. It's kinetic energy. It's like when you send something out, there's a boomerang effect. It has to. It goes around full circle. It has to. How that manifests depends on what you're trying to manifest. It depends on your intent. So I think when somebody's like, in the case at least The Exorcist, from what I gather from what you're telling me is that the intent was to create this embodiment, of this demon. That was the intent. And in doing so, this person became that embodiment. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, had definitely, I think, established himself as a platform for that intelligence to express itself through to various degrees. And yeah, I mean, even still go back and rewatching that flick and immersing myself into it. Oh yeah, the signature essence of Pazuzu is just enmeshed, even through the score of that film, the cinematography, some of these subtle aspects of just what you can see in the faces of characters in between shots and transitions of shots. Very subtle, very, very subtle cues, but they're there. And yeah, I think they can be recognized by anybody who just really opens up their awareness and opens up their mind into wanting to receive that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I think essentially, okay. Behemoth is saying, ask Nate what he loves about Pinhead so much.
Oh man, yeah, I love so many things I love about Pinhead, man. Love that he is just the quintessence of pain embodied. I love the stoic command that he takes over uh, the powers in the dimension that he resides, to be able to send uh, black chains that can bind, that can rip apart, that can destroy, that can do anything that is, I think, is cooperative and that is complementary of inflicting that pain unbound. But there's a lot of things, like even in the Hellraiser films, that I do appreciate, even that kind of come and overlap in an occult context. And it's usually in the transitions you have somebody that is obsessed, or they have that infatuation with that gateway, which is the lament configuration, that box.
Hmm.
And as they're going through this immersion, curiosity of opening that dimensional gateway that key unlocks, Pinhead and his familiars start to breach the veil, and they do make certain things that make a lot of sense. Remember, there's one scene where I think it's the doctor in Hellraiser 2. He's kind of a closet black magician, and you can tell he hasn't seen the depths of reality of this, but he's convinced that these formulas will open up accessibility to these realms and these beings. And he has this one girl from this sanitarium hospital that he works at. Who's she seems to be this. Her forte is solving puzzles, and so he sits her down in the basically in the middle of the temple, and they give her the box in hopes that she's going to be able to intellectually open it, and then put into motion this catalyst of breaching the dimensional veil to what lies beyond in access for it. Anyway, she starts to fumble with it, and he's watching from this room that's it's kind of like a little hidden chamber beyond, and he's looking through this one-way mirror, and he's watching. He's just, his eyes are peeled back, and as things start to open and the dimensions start to shift and manifest in accommodation for Pinhead to open up the walls and come into this reality, Pinhead starts to come through, and he says, "Wait." He says, "Hold up." He said, "It is not hands that call us, but it is desire." And he knows right then. He goes, "It wasn't this girl that just stumbled on this box, but somebody with their bleeding, aching desire, this in emotion." And it's little things. It's little things like that through the series that I have an appreciation for. I think in the context of when you look at the Alliance with some of the ways that things were laid out in those films in comparison with I think what constitutes the successful formula of evocation in itself, in different degrees and gradients of that. It's those types of movies that I just really appreciate. I think the embodiment of everything that comes through, and it's Hellraiser. I think was a great one. I think through the conduit, it was Clive Barker that had brought that all forward, and there's a lot of things through those characters that I just have a personal appreciation for, and I just love it, man. Always have loved Pinhead's personal character, or just the way that he tackles everything, and just being exactly the quintessence of what he is. And there's a lot of other movies that have similar appreciation like that, but yeah, it's those are some of the gems that I look back or I'll watch in private. And, I have a deep internal appreciation for. There's ones that really, I think, connect the occult dots.
I never looked at Pinhead as a bad guy. Like, I know, like, there's kind of like this idea that, because, the whole concept of hell and supposedly the Cenobites are demons. But Pinhead never, like, Pinhead and the Cenobites, they don't come through just killing anybody. Like, they come when called. You have to invite them through intent.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, that was the whole it's not hands that call us, but it is desire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that desire, and then even I think for those particular characters, really, I think breaking the mold of compartmentalization, because he's demons to some, angels to others, but what we are is explorers in the further regions of experience. And oh man, I love that shit. I was like, that's it, man. I mean, what else can you say? What else can you even put a description on that beats that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it really seemed. I think that I really think center that appreciation for. I'm thinking of a Frank in that movie Hellraiser. He was saying that even when he had that box, he was just looking to push the boundaries of pleasure. and whether it was heaven or hell, he didn't care which, but he just wanted more and more intensity. And I do see that as a familiar signature in true practitioners, especially those of the darker path that are willing to bulldoze forward into the unknown, regardless of the perils and danger that waits, and certain keys that you turn. So, but anyway, I do love Hellraiser, and I do love Joseph Nunn. he's seen me, I think, make more than enough references and posts, I think, on Facebook about Hellraiser in particular. But classic, man, definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. No, Hellraiser would definitely be is my second favorite horror movie. First one will always be Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh man, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. And that's another one I could get into for same reasons with cursed films. And I actually like that. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street. Was it the New Nightmare, where they actually even, in regards to the screenplay of the movie, where they were referencing that Freddy Krueger had become this active egregore. It was breaking through the planes and now stepping into this world with heavy impact. And yeah, that's kind of something that I've always recognized, and I think that character in itself, how it is an embodied and empowered egregore, I think on many different levels.
Well, my favorite scene, I can't remember which one it was. Which one was the one where he possessed the kid and he would come out through the kid? That was the second one, right?
Oh yeah, it was yeah, that was the second one where he started kind of the claws coming through his fingertips.
Yep,
and,
yep. So my favorite scene in that one was an improv line from the actor that played Freddy. So there's a pool party happening, all that shit, and Freddy comes through the kid, starts slashing through fucking everybody. Apparently there was like a barbecue out there that was connected directly to a gas line. Somebody hit the fucking barbecue and this fucking flame shoots up. And then he fucking just opens his hand with the flame behind him. That was supposed to be the end of the scene. That was it. He just opens up his hands like this, like inviting people in. And dude came out with a fucking improv line. He's like, "You're all my children now." And I was like, fuck yeah. Like,
yeah, that's fucking beautiful. It's those moments where it just captures it perfectly, and you can't put it into words, but it just really embodies, I think, the deeper meaning of what that film was seeking to capture with that.
Definitely. I mean, I've always, for me, I'm a big film buff. I just like movies in general.
Oh yeah.
And generally speaking, movies do have the ability to draw me closer to my beliefs. A lot of them do. One of the things that I constantly bitch about, though, is the light in which we are shown. Like, it's no secret that most of us, if you're listening to this conversation, enjoy the macabre. We enjoy that. We enjoy a little bit of terror in our lives. Safe terror, right? We don't be actually being chased through the woods with some dude with a gun. I mean, that's no fun for anybody, well, except for the guy with the gun, apparently. But I digress. We like, the horror movies. We like a little bit of fucking terror in our lives. I mean, come on. Who didn't watch Hellraiser back in the 90s? I'm going to say the 90s because I was too little in the 80s to fucking watch that shit. And said, I want to dress like that guy. I did. I saw fucking Pinhead. I was like, I want to look like him. Like,
oh, he's got a beautiful embodiment, man. It's total, just dark bondage, man.
Yeah,
Looks,
exactly.
Leather chains.
Exactly. But the problem comes in, that's our only representation. That's what the problem. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not downing it. They're amazing fucking films. Like all of them. All we're talking about. The Exorcist, Hellraiser, fucking Nightmare on Elm Street. All of these are wonderful and amazing fucking films. But at the end of the day, we are shown in a light that makes us all fucking serial murderers. What do you say to that?
It's it sucks, but it's funny because it's easier for most people just to judge and to sum something up than to actually think and break down the countless gradients of diversity in something. So it becomes duality. And it's dualistic. We're just gonna sum them up and put them in the bad guy group. This isn't light. This is darkness, and all of a sudden everything about it is negative. It's evil. It's dangerous. I think it's a convenient label for people who really don't want to look into the face of what something truly is and be able to pick it apart. And you could take that with a lot of different things. You could even take some serial killers, and they've done some heinous fucking shit, but doesn't mean that every aspect of who that person is this is black and white, is this negative thing. Some of them out there have been involved in history of being very loving, supporting parents to degrees, and for people around them. But I think even where I think a lot of people get turned off by the complexity of that, I think that's what makes it, more interesting for those who have a wider capacity to look into those things with interest and kind of figure out where does this whole soiree of things, how does it connect? How does it coexist? What are the differences? What are the different degrees? What are the intensities that lie within this individual? And I think, though, for a lot of people, that's where things really get interesting, is trying to psychologically dissect, analyze, and understand the different contexts of light and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And then for different people, those are different meanings in totally different capacities. And I remember speaking with somebody, trying to illustrate that point of you could have a woman, just say like in streets of New York, that's cruising around, and she gets attacked by some guy who's trying to rape her, and this is probably like the worst moment of her life, being attacked by this guy who's totally trying to violate her in the most intimate fucking way. And then you could have somebody who comes around the corner, maybe just finished working on some carpenter job or something. He's got this hammer on his tool belt. He sees what's going on, and he runs up and just starts smashing away at this guy's head that's attempting to rape this woman. And you might have some old lady across the street who just happened to walk out of some store, and she just sees this dude just caving in this guy's fucking skull with this framing hammer. And she's just yelling like, Christ, that's the most evil shit that I've ever fucking seen. Like, I've never seen anything like that in person or otherwise. And there's bits of skull and meat flying everywhere. And but right as that's happening, you can have the woman who was attacked like jump up and hug the guy with the hammer and be in tears and be like, you just saved my life. You are my guardian angel. Like, you stepped forward when everybody else heard what was going on and ran the other fucking way. like I owe everything to you, and like you just made my day. So it's funny what context that somebody can actually put good and evil in.
Mhm.
And when it comes down to it, those are just perceptions, perceptions by individuals.
So, what do you say
What
to
is
somebody?
good to one person is evil to another.
I agree with you 100%. So, I'm curious. This brings about a question. So, what do you say to someone? Let's say you're having a conversation with somebody you've never met before. They have no idea who you are, and the conversation comes up of your beliefs. And you know, just kind of come out and say, well, it's this. This is what I do. And they ask, how can you pay homage, time, dedication to forces dedicated to destruction and evil?
You know, it's a great question, and I think it really it's not something that you can I think you can throw out to anybody right off the cuff and really make an impactful, relevant point that is going to stick with them, and I think really open up the doors of illumination. But if I was to sit down with that individual who came and asked me that, it would lead into a discussion of what reality is and what the system is of the matrix that I'm involved in, and then getting into my experience and my understanding with different entities, religions, and the systems of which they operate, but also the misconceptions that they are this ultimate embodiment of omnipotence in the highest. And then looking at what these other forces, these darker entities, what it is that they are embodiments of, and what are their fortes specifically when you break it down. And that is to illuminate, that is to show the seeker the architectural roadmap, what is really there, and to give them the information, the guidance, if they are willing to pick up that lantern, start to go into the darkness and either want to jailbreak the system or find a way to independently um, come into their own power. They are the rebels. They are the rebels against the tyranny of control. So anybody who seeks alliance with them, that is their nature. Their nature is to be able to show the individual and illuminate um, what lies beyond the Maya and the illusion of that very small sphere of existence that they have been day to day existing in. And it's funny because it kind of takes me back to that conversation we just had. To some individuals, they say, "Oh, you're wanting to break out. You're wrong. That's wrong. That's dark." But it's only because of the subjective programming that they have through whatever dogmatic faith that they were raised in from before they could even remember being able to speak. So there's certain things and perceptions that many will have, but once you can sit down into a deeper Gnostic conversation, I think it starts to illuminate the vastness of where this actually leads, where it goes to, and then being able to answer those questions that are furiously thrown at the at a black magician like myself, for instance, and being able to sit down and nullify, I think, those misconceptions. But it really takes some time to, because for the most part, those people, they haven't sat down and they haven't immersed contemplation in what reality is, and really, I think, breaking down the finer components and fibers of what this is all woven into and woven from. So you have to sit down and actually be able to put things into certain context to be able to elaborately make a point. Um, for the most part, you could take anybody, from it could be a non-denominational Christian church, and it's interesting because you get into, or at least I'll speak from the context of I have been in certain conversations with people that I've known and other people that I haven't known, but have sought to engage this type of conversation. And it's funny because they are coming from an isolated perspective of the Bible, for instance. The Bible is the end all be all, and they want to have a rational conversation that anytime they want to defend a point, well, it comes back down to, well, in Deuteronomy, this verse that, it says this, and it says Christ will be back, and blah 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 blah. So you start seeing that they're in the shallow pond of where that conversation can go. So they have to be willing to step out of that pond and, I think, open up the doors to reality, because it is a comfortable programmed niche to be able to have everything fall back on a biblical context. And it's interesting too, because that's really what the church is comprised of. It's people who will reinforce these particular shallow viewpoints, or viewpoints that get very entangled into deeper aspects of Christianity, but everything is still within that same paradigm. And in church, everybody will rally and emotionally support. That's right, brother. Amen. Yeah, hallelujah. And it doesn't matter what they're saying, but as long as it's all in the same agreeable context of this is where we came from and this is where we're going and this is the way that things are or should be, very comfortable. And it's very easy to get entrapped into that dogmatic quicksand. And but it's funny when they kind of slip out of that without realizing it, and then they want to get into a debate about something. And I don't care about debating shit with people personally, because it doesn't matter how good you can argue something. It doesn't make it real or not real.
Mm-hmm.
You could have somebody who's a PhD, make a point for there being no gravity,
Mm-hmm.
against a small child that is trying to come at them with no gravity exists, but the dude with the PhD is going to be much more intellectually articulate and be able to come at it with certain verbal acrobatics to be able to have this kid's head spinning to where at the end he's like, fuck, is there gravity? Is it real?
Well, that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about the semantics, right? It's like,
semantics are funny, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's completely. So my qualm with. All right, so I've never personally had issue with like Christians or Catholics personally, like directly as people, unless of course they come at me with some stupid shit.
Sure.
Speak of the fucking devil. If we're talking about Christians and Catholics, and Mark 5 just pops in. All right, here's our resident Christian, by the way.
Oh, dude.
Right?
They're everywhere, man.
So, I mean, he's cool, though. Like, I mean, he's good people. He's case in point, right? That I don't necessarily have problem with Christians per se.
Sure.
But I can't stand the religion. I can't stand the church. I can't stand the embodiment of the church. I can't stand what I can't get behind what it stands for, because we are forever going to be the scapegoats of these people. There's so much guilt and manipulation and lies and just bullshit that gets spewed all the time. Like I used to talk about this stuff a lot like the way you talk now, right? Like you're very poetic when you speak. You're very articulate. Like you have a very, like the air around you is just, you know, alive with the words that you use. And I used to be very much the same. But then I realized it doesn't matter how eloquently I speak to these people. It doesn't matter how eloquently I place these ideas out there. They fall on deaf ears. And
Totally.
I just got to the point where I went from speaking like you to just literally just sitting there saying, you know what? I don't fucking care.
Well, you know, I mean, that's where I agree with you. I don't care. Like I don't, and like I was saying, I don't debate with people because it's pointless. And especially the people who want to step up, the religious fanatics that want to sit down and be like, well, let's debate about it. They're not coming at it with an open mind. They're coming at it with, well, how can I'm just going to wait for my turn to speak. I don't care what the fuck he says, and I'm going to hammer home my point. So I don't engage these fundamentalists, these fanatics in any capacity, and it's pointless. But for the people who do approach me or who would like to listen to my thoughts on something that are free thinkers or open-minded,
right?
Oh man, it's great conversation. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's illuminating, it's thought-provoking. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, I've learned early on it's pointless to talk to somebody who already has a hammered agenda of they want to come under the guise of, well, let's talk, let's debate about things. Let's talk about both sides of the coin and just let me show you the rational side of it. And it's but when you're coming from something that's faith-based, especially in that capacity, there is no logical, solid, evident semantics in it. There's nothing. But what I do like about things like magic and the practice of the occult is that it's a system.
Yep.
It's a verifiable system, and there's a formula so that you can pull that lever and the ball comes out.
Yeah.
And faith is the only thing as far as faith goes. It's just to be able to get. You only need about enough faith to get the ball rolling to say, well, there's something to this. I think there's something here, and I'm going to investigate and invest some serious open-minded time into seeing where this leads me. And you'll find out the context of either things work or they don't. But it's not, there's no proof to this, and you just have to believe no matter what.
Well, it's one of the ideas that I've always kind of thrown out there is like, okay, let's look at the people. Let's look at generally speaking. Like, I mean, there's people like Mark V, which are different. You know, they just want to have a conversation. They do want to get their point out there, but, you know, they still want to let you say your piece and whatnot. But for the most part, the angriest people that I've ever had the displeasure of meeting are Christians and Catholics. Because the moment that something's presented that remotely hits the mainstream that is contrary to their faith, I mean, look at it, like music, for fuck's sake. I mean, the Christian right, how long has the Christian right been fighting against heavy metal music? You got fucking Elvis, Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne, Marilyn Manson, like the list just keeps fucking going. We just want to be left the fuck alone. Like, I'm not running around fucking telling people what the fuck it is I'm doing, not because I'm trying to hide, it's just none of your fucking business. You know, these goddamn people are running around knocking on people's fucking doors and, have you found Jesus? It's like, is it any of your fucking business?
You know, I agree. I have fun with those people when they come knocking on the door, man. It's definitely an event. But unfortunately, like we're in this day and age where this attitude and this religion has been around for centuries, man, and it's spread like a virus, and for the most part, most people are like sheep, and it's easy to put things in that dualistic box. If it's either this or that, it's good versus evil. And especially when that becomes an indoctrination, to where not just Sundays, but all through the week, you're going and you're surrounding yourself in church and different schools of the same thought that just hammer that home, hammer that home, hammer that home. And that's the danger of no matter what it is, of just being subjected to a certain confinement of thought and not endeavoring outside the box in any type of pioneering way of discovery, of wanting to actually go and put boots on the ground and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dangerous because you can talk to a lot of people that come from this, and somewhere in the conversation, it'll come up, well, that's just how I was raised. And it's like, well, that's funny you say that, because let's think about what happens and what somebody's like when they're a toddler, and as they grow up year after year of being in a certain environment, of how that molds a person. So you could take that could be in a racist context, that could be in a religious context, but it's interesting to see how the mind is honed, and it is brought up in a certain capacity to even lock out rational thought, or it just bottoming out at a certain context of just, well, that's just the way I was raised. That's the way my father was. That's the way that church has always told me things ever since I can remember. And when I did ask, they said, don't ask that again, or what you're asking about is evil. Like, it's funny when certain things are challenged in the way that they're actually that they're answered for certain people that are being indoctrinated year after year and brought up in this very imprisoning mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about, to me, the left-hand path. That left-hand path isn't about darkness and evil. It's about getting off the road. It's about taking your tools and stepping into the unknown to better yourself, to discover, but to be the one that says, look, I'm just not going to take this because you say it's this way.
Mm-hmm.
Or I see something, there's something that I see out there that is opening up the corridors to freedom in
Mm-hmm.
many different capacities. And that, to me, is what, like, the true left-hand path is. And working in alliance with a lot of these darker forces that are basically embodiments of the unknown, those are the things that become the appropriate tools in different capacities of being able to empower you for that journey of self-discovery,
Mm-hmm.
or discovery of just what is beyond, what is outside the system, what is outside the four walls and the roof and the floor that I've been brought up
Mm-hmm.
in any context. What is real, what is not.
I think it should go beyond that as well, though. Like, so there's a certain air about the left-hand path that we all kind of like to fall into, and that's that rebel mentality, right? Because like as we know, we kind of fall into the whole idea of like Satanism, the adversary, right? Satan the adversary, and we're adversarial by nature, like that we go against the grain. And generally speaking, that's very true. We're always going to be,
Sure.
generally speaking, the progressive bunch and not very conservative. But I think there's going to come a point where, as with all things that are originally kind of looked at as being edgy, I think Satanism and the left-hand path is one of those things that has maintained its edginess for a very long time, right? It's a very consistent edginess. Like you tell somebody I'm left-hand path, they're just going to be like, huh? Right? Most people don't know what the fuck that is. You tell somebody I'm a Satanist and they're like, ooh. And I think there is going to come a junction where the act of being a Satanist isn't going to be as adversarial as what people think. And I think there has to be a certain level of faith involved in it, like actual faith in what it is that we're doing. There is an understanding that, yes, we go against the grain. We're constantly trying to learn. We're constantly trying to expand our minds, our spirits, our bodies. We're trying to push ourselves to limits. For some people, those limits are different. Some of them are physical limits. It could be exercise. It could be eating healthy, or it could be the complete other end of the spectrum, right?
Sure.
At some point, it's going to have to level out, right? Because I think that the niche right now is playing the dark side, right? That's the niche right now. That has been the niche for a while. And I think that's going to have to drop sooner or later. Yes, it is very obvious that we like to wear black. I mean, for fuck's sake, I'm wearing eyeshadow and eyeliner, for God's sake, okay? We like black. We like bats. We like all of that shit, right? It's a thing. But that isn't the definition of
Absolutely
somebody in the left-hand path. I mean, I've seen people myself, doctors, lawyers, things like that, that like to dress nicely. Their houses are like, completely fucking, looks like a Taj Mahal palace with gold and white all over the place or whatever. And they're Satanists. You'd never fucking know it. You walk in their house and it's just like, all right, you see no religious symbols whatsoever, but, they're Satanists. You would never know. And it's not because they're hiding. It's just because that's who they are as people. That's what they like. And there's this misconception that I guess most of us are like you and I,
right.
I mean, I can barely see you, right? Like you just kind of like,
Right. It's just the nature of it.
yeah. Like if you had a long sleeve shirt on, honestly, you'd be a floating head right now.
Oh, exactly. You ain't kidding.
But I think that there has to be a level, like a point where it levels out. And what I mean by that is where we kind of stop talking about like the edginess. And I'm not saying that's what you were doing, like what you're doing right now, because it's not what you were doing. But it made me think of all these other people that when they start talking about like, what they believe in, right? It's like, oh yeah, man, I'm a Satanist and the fucking devil. Yeah, man. And fucking hail Satan. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, slow your roll, Billy Bob. Like, I mean, it's not about the edginess. That's a point of attraction for a lot of people, but I think there's a lot more to it.
Oh man, totally. And that's the thing that I guess, well, I've never really, I guess, ran with the I guess the label. I never really also wanted to have anything that's a label. even Black Magician. It's the closest thing that I can relevantly use
Mm-hmm.
in that capacity. And even that, I still gotta break it down for people that it's not about evil. It's about being unrestricted
Mm-hmm.
and having no boundaries and the limitlessness of true darkness. But it kind of comes around like a spiral again, because a lot of these people that we would like to have understand are the shallow-minded when it really comes down to it. They can't break it down. They can't see beyond the horizon of what's really going on there, and it's just the dualistic label. And even in my own journey of getting to where I'm at right now, like you can say Satanists, and there's so many different people who will use that banner. Things, and there's organizations that it's like, okay, I see what you're doing in this political context, but you could easily use something else.
TST.
More appropriately adversarial than calling yourself a Satanist. And then now of all the fallout and everything that needs to be untangled from that. But even in Satanists, I find that I've only come across, like, in the context of what I would consider like a true Satanist, very, 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 very few people. And it's more something that I'll be when it's appropriate for certain circumstances. And I'll work with those forces, and then when I'm done in that particular aspect, then put those tools away. But yeah, man, it's such a clusterfuck of where we're at in this day and age, and trying to get people to look underneath the surface of it, just because of the mere fact that it's so much easier to just black and white paint things, especially things that takes a while to really untangle the spaghetti from, and to really look underneath that surface and go, oh shit, like, this isn't about Satan. This is about shit that blows my mind. And then if you could really even open that up for somebody, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I've had some pretty mind-blowing conversations, even with my own mother, who's a devout Christian. And once we start kind of breaking down the fabric of reality and what's there, and the underlying context of it, and then starting to get back onto the surface and say, these labels that you see me with and everything that you've put on me, you need to strip those away. Like, you should get under that in a beautiful way that I think you might kind of, at least if you want to pursue this conversation with an open mind. And I've had some very interesting conversations and enlightening ones with my mother, I think, and just trying to sift out a lot of that misconception. But in those, the fortunate aspect that I had with her was more that we have the relationship of mother and son, and she was really wanting to kind of see my perspective and understand it. So I think I was given that unique aspect and opportunity to really kind of break things down without being stepped on. Because most people in that religious capacity, it's war. It's this antagonizing debate, and they have already made up their minds that there is no other answer. There is no other option. The way that the capacities that they see Yahweh and everything that is within the dynamics of that system, that is the end all be all. And no matter where that conversation goes, it's dead.
Yeah. That's the brainwashing, I mean, even with my own mother, because you mentioned your mom, my mom's a witch, for fuck's sake. And even my own mother has told me, like, you know, hey, you know, you're fucking with things that you're not supposed to be fucking with. That like human beings were never supposed to be fucking with. You know, and I kind of, she's respectful of it, but even she will sit there and say, like, you know, the things that you're messing with are things that human beings were never supposed to fucking touch. And I was like, well, we are, you know, and we have been for a very long time, you know, beyond, you know, before you and before me, you know.
Right.
And I look at the left-hand path as balance. It is a balancing force in a very unbalanced world, which is one of the reasons why my patron deity is Baphomet. I mean, Baphomet is, you know, the sigil and the figure on this podcast. You know, Baphomet's on my computer. It's on my wall. It's on that wall. It's around my neck. I look at the left-hand path as the balancing force. It's not because we like to focus on the dark side of it, but we're not evil. And Behemoth, if you're here, I'm going to use you as an example, man. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use you as an example. I look at Behemoth X, for example. If you have no context of who he is as a person, I don't know him personally. I've never fucking talked to him because he won't come on the show. Anyway, sorry, I had to put it out there. But if you just watch one video, one of his his mantra videos or whatever, you're like, this is an evil motherfucker. You know, you see all the candles and the sigils and the skulls and shit and the bones laying all over the fucking place. Like, this is one evil motherfucker. But if you dig into the content and you start to pay attention, you can tell he's a devoted husband. He's a loving father, right? He's a decent human being that wants to help people. He's a human being that's struggling with his own personal demons of trying to deal with certain things in his life. He's just like the rest of us. But you only see that one facet. That's it. That one facet that, you know, that's publicly shown. And you don't dig any deeper. You don't pay attention to the light side of everything. And the left-hand path is that balance. Is the understanding, and I keep repeating this and I can't say it enough. The left-hand path is the understanding that for the light to exist, the dark also must exist. And both hold positive properties that we need to take advantage of. Both sides.
Absolutely.
You cannot be 100% dark and you cannot be 100% light. There has to be a balance, whether that's 60-40 or 70-30 or 50-50, whatever that looks like for you. The left-hand path is that balance. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it even when you break it down to, well, it's about finding what's real out there, about leaving the confines of the road, and you're now getting off the path to see what's really out there for what it is. And no, it's just the illumination of unbiased truth. And I think that's the beauty of really kind of stepping out and getting away from all of the programming, all of the shit that people have to say about something, and being able to look and see and hear it for yourself. And that is, you know, that is truly and that will bring, I think, balance in being able to look at something more and more unbiased, to be able to see the gold in whatever it is that's before you, in any system, any application. Things that are considered light, considered dark. That's the beauty. And it's sometimes we have to come out of balance and venture more into some of these more intense polarities of darkness or light, to be able to make that actual ground, to be able to get the traction there, and to make the journey more and more expansive, but it's coming back once you go to these extremes, coming back and grounding yourself, and then letting that actually acclimate and digest, whether it's the extreme light, the extreme dark, wherever it is that you go, digesting it, and then taking that knowledge and alchemically transforming it into wisdom for who you are and going forward. But it's just getting into what is real, what is truly fucking real, and not the illusory or what people say is being something. And that's the beauty of having experience, is that when you've seen something and you've experienced it for yourself with your own ears, your own eyes, then you don't have to go on what somebody else is telling you about it. And that's what I really loved about the allure of magic. Getting into that, it's like, well, I don't have to worry about what some other prophet, what some pastor, what some minister is telling me is beyond the Great Barrier that he probably hasn't been over and seen with his own eyes either, but he's trying to sit here and tell me what's there based on what other people have told him. But once you have the tools and the resources to be able to go ascend that mountain and look with your own eyes and hear with your own ears what lies over there, nothing beats that. And that is Agreed. The acquisition of the balance that you spoke of. It's now you get to see the what is the destructive and the constructive, but you get to experience that firsthand. And that's what I loved about even the initial lure of evocation, which is I don't have to go on the word of what somebody says these angels say or these demons say or what they're about or what they come from or what they represent. But now, if I'm endeavoring enough, I can actually reach out and make that contact myself. Hey, it might incinerate me, might fuck me up, but there's some instances where I'd rather die knowing the truth than to die later with bullshit. And
exactly.
No, there's nothing that beats, I think, really having those experiences and putting everything on the line to go experience that firsthand and be able to see for yourself what reality is.
I'm with you. I know I'm with you. Like, so one of the things I always thought, so when I started this channel and I started doing this shit, one of a point of contention for me, or kind of like rather, I guess for me, a perceived point of weakness, is I am very well aware of things like the Goetia, or the teachings of Crowley and the Thoth and all of this shit. I'm aware of it. I'm not book smart on it, and there's a reason I'm not. So I got to a point in like my journey. This coincides with what you're talking about, like what someone else says, right? Like that comment
Absolutely.
that you made. I read a lot of books, starting out in the occult, on the Wicca side of things, right? So like, we're talking, Scott Cunningham, DJ Conway, all of these authors, right?
Sure.
And then I got to this point where I started to realize every single book, every single text is a variation of the same fucking thing. Like, I read the Satanic Bible, the Enochian Keys, everything is a variation of something else. So I literally got to a point where I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'm not reading another fucking word another goddamn human being wants to fucking tell me and what's right and what's wrong or what it is that I should or shouldn't do. If I want to connect spiritually to a spiritual plane, to an entity that is not of this world, why in the fuck am I going to listen to a human being
Tell me what it is that I need to do. And that's where I developed the whole idea of listening. I get on my knees in front of my altar. I light my candles. I burn my incense. I peer into the eyes of the statue of Baphomet that I have, and I listen. What does Baphomet want to tell me? Not what Nate Bales wants to tell me, not what Behemoth X wants to tell me. What does Baphomet want to tell me?
Sure.
And it turned into a situation where it was, no, when you start asking me about these very specific and technical, spiritual or ritual activities, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Nor do I give a shit. Because what I do works and brings me results. And I think the one thing in all of the occult that people have forgotten is, instead of how many things you can quote from a book, how many things can you actually do yourself? How many things have you come up with originally from the bowels of your fucking soul, out of necessity and desperation and hunger, have you come up with to connect to the entities that you so long to connect to? Have you done that? Or have you just read books by XYZ person telling you it is that you can and cannot do? And then consider yourself adept in the arts of black magic because you can quote a fucking book. Because I can quote a book. I can quote many books. I can quote The Three Little Pigs. I can quote fucking, Little Red Riding Hood. I can quote Cinderella. I can quote a lot of books. A book doesn't make you adept.
No.
Experience makes you adept. And how many people are sacrificing experience for literature? And I'm not saying don't read. Of course, read. Learn what you can from everyone.
That's the primer.
Exactly. But I just think it's like people have fucking lost that concept of actually doing shit themselves. It's like, where the fuck do you think the people that write this shit down, where do you think they got it from?
Right.
I only quote Cannibal Corpse songs. There you go. Hammer smash face.
But I'm with you, man. I'm the same thing. I mean, I think it's great when somebody's just starting to answer that call and endeavor down these forbidden paths. I mean, you can look at the journals, so to speak, of other people who've taken the trek of experience, and you can use that as a primer of especially inspiration, going, okay, there's some type of system here. There's something that seems to connect and unlock things, and okay, I get it. And you can plug in certain things that make sense to you, and you can refine that process. But so many people get lost in the armchair aspect of that, and they don't have their own experiences. Like you're saying, they want to use what the experiences that they've read about from others and sit there and make that as the judicial call of what's real, what's not, what works and what doesn't. But nothing beats firsthand experience, firsthand success, firsthand failures, and getting up and thrusting yourself into the actual performance of doing this. And it's it can be a big rabbit hole to get lost in. And education and knowledge is always, I think it's a good thing to have, and it's a good thing to endeavor to accumulate. But I've seen a lot of people that call themselves adepts or high priests or whatever, that just get lost in the scholarly ocean of what's occult out there. And just like you said, being able to say, well, I've read this book, and this concurs with this and this other shit. And but there's no hands-on experience to go with that.
Nope.
And it becomes very evident, especially when you start engaging these particular individuals.
Mhm.
But no, it's a. I think that it should be used as a primer to just kind of get the ball rolling, and then you immerse yourself into it, just like you're saying, and that's where you can have these experiences, and you can connect with these forces that will tell you exactly what they're about, instead
Mhm.
of having to. And that was one of the things, even like Belial, when I started first really establishing that rapport with Belial, is, forget everything you think that you know about me. Forget everything that you've read about me, that you've heard about me. He goes, some of the surface descriptions are true and common. He goes, but that is only the fucking surface
Mhm.
to an abyss that
And,
lies
and
under that.
well, another thing to understand though is like all these entities that we're working with function differently with each person. Like because the individual
Absolutely.
is so different, it needs to function differently with you. It's the way
Absolutely.
the way it functions with Nate is not how it's going to function with me, and the way it functions with me is not how it's going to function with Scarlet or Slim or Behemoth or the child of the lie. It's
You
going to
nailed it.
function. It's going to function differently with each one. There's a reason I'm writing the book of Baphomet, because it's what Baphomet's giving me. They're not my words; they're Baphomet's words, and it's not a book about how to worship Baphomet. There's not a single word in the book that I'm writing of what you need to do to worship Baphomet correctly. However you worship Baphomet is up to you. That is your decision. That is your choice. That is whatever you deem correct. The book of Baphomet is to show what people have been missing. There's an aspect of this that every single one of us has been missing. There's a point to it that we've been missing. And that's the point of the book of Baphomet. It's not to tell you what you need to do to worship Baphomet. That's fucking up to you. If you want to fucking wave your dick around in a helicopter motion, that's up to you. But extremes for fucking humor, right?
Oh, man, I love it.
But it's to show what's missing. There's a point to all of this that's been missing. That's what it's there to show. I'm not trying to teach you how to worship Baphomet. That's on you. It's not my place to teach you shit. You learn in your own time whether or not that's something that you want to do. What I am bringing forth and putting onto the table are not my words. For as insane as that sounds, and trust me, I'm the one saying them, and it sounds fucking crazy. They're not my words. They're Baphomet's.
That's
And
the
it's
beauty in it.
And there's a point that we've all been missing. If I could give the book away for free, I would. But the fact of the matter is, publishing
and
isn't free.
Your experience with Baphomet is going to be unique, and the beautiful part about that is what uniquely is conveyed through you as the medium is going to be appropriate for many others who are meant to hear it in that particular capacity.
Exactly. And it's going to be complete bullshit for others, and that's their prerogative. And that's fine.
Exactly.
I am not coming out of this with the intention of connecting with the entire world. That's not the point. The point is those who are adept and willing to hear it. And by the way, when I say adept, it doesn't mean that if you say, I read the book and it's fucking bullshit, that doesn't mean you're not adept. It just means it doesn't jive with you. Whatever. That's fine. I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care. I've said from the beginning, I'm not trying to be a leader here. I'm not trying to lead a movement. I just want to help people. That's all I want to fucking do. I just want to help people. And all of you in this chat, including Nate and Scarlet and Behemoth and Jury and Necro and all of you, you are my people. I may not know you personally. I don't know the traumas you suffer. I don't know the pains and the anguish that you go through day and day. But you are my people. You're mine. And I love every single fucking one of you. And the only thing I want to do is help you. And give you what's being given to me to give you. That's it.
share your sentiment. You come across a particular insight, and you see where it can be applied in so many different ways, and you make it available, and the right people will find it.
All
But
you
if
can
you
do, that's
don't,
it.
guess what? They don't find it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's it. That's it, man. That's it. You just can put it out there. That's it.
that's it. That's the awesome part about it, man. And the awesome part really about it is that they can take the insights that you've had, the experiences that you've undergone, and they can plug that in as appropriately for them. They don't have to take it as fucking a stone cold scripture. They can say, you know what? This makes perfect sense, and this connects some dots that I've been looking to figure out how they fucking jive together.
Mm-hmm.
And Malice has fucking created that bridge for me through his experience with Baphomet. And dude, that's fucking beautiful. And that's the funny part about putting that out there and hoping that people can actually take this information and go apply it practically, as opposed to the people who could read what you've written or somebody else
Mm-hmm.
and just say, well, he says it for this. This is scripture. This is it. And then trying to run with it that way, but actually taking whatever it is that you come across in whatever context and finding a way to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's all you're trying to do with that endeavor, and I'm on the same journey, man. Is to take our experience, our insight, and to put it out there in whatever way that is practically malleable for whoever wants to use it.
Speaking of practicality, let's get into some information that people can actually apply. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
So let's say I'm curious because we've got people again, Behemoth. I keep throwing you in here, man. But you get people like Behemoth X or Orly that was in here earlier. That they've got shit tons of fucking videos out there. You can see what it is that they do. Things like that, how they do it, whatever. If you find an entity that you want to connect with, that you feel a calling to, right? Let's say it's an entity you've never connected to before. What are the steps that you would go through to begin that connection, to create that bridge to kind of like work with that entity?
I guess if it's something that's more commonly known, you could take like King Paimon, for example. Then what I've found is that you'll undergo this guided preparatory immersion that will start to kind of build context or creating a substantial connection with that intelligence. And it's funny because it'll be different, like you said, for everybody who seeks to establish that open, active conduit with that particular entity that has been by many addressed as King Paimon. You'll find that particular entity starts to line up the path for you of where to find the appropriate contextual information that reflects him most appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Reflects it most appropriately. You might find yourself being guided to start to come across something online, but it's putting that open call out there that I do want to learn more about you. I want to connect with you. It does reap a response, and that's a huge key factor that I've found in so much of this, especially when people really complain about hitting dead ends. You have to put out that carry to the universe, to the entity, of saying like, hey, open the door for me. Give me a door to go through. I want to learn more about you. Lead me to the right place. Where do I go to find out who it is that you are? And when you put those inquiries out there, those requests, that are heartfelt, that are genuine, and you make yourself open, it's almost so simple how everything just starts to align for that to materialize. But in doing so, I would say that to put that call out there, to address that entity, um, to take time and seek to even just make a very initial light connection, whatever it is that you're trying to be heard, and to put that request out there. Hey, guide me. And it can be just that simple. Guide me. Show me who you are, as opposed to what other people would say, and those who are not fit to represent you. Show me who you really are. Guide me to the right resources that will represent you in the capacity that you wish to express yourself in the appropriate context for me. And it's funny how things will start to line up. You may come across something on the internet as you're scrolling through, as you put in certain search inquiries that you've never come across before, or it'll take you down this rabbit hole of, holy shit, I never thought about that. And it could be somebody, all of a sudden they put in a search request and they come across somebody like you, and now they can see the Book of Baphomet. And what the Book of Baphomet has is in a stark contrast to a lot of other information about Baphomet. But when you put that particular call out to that entity, it's funny how everything gets reshuffled to accommodate the trajectory that you've asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think it is that simple. But I've had other experiences of generating that familiarity with other entities that aren't cataloged. That really takes more of a concise meditational route of going through them and being able to enter into a more of a Gnostic communion with that, and then channeling what comes from that particular entity and trusting in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends, I think, on what type of entity, in just what context. If it's something that people have known, if it's something that has been documented, of interacting with different cultures and for aeons before, or if it's intelligence that is undiscovered, so to speak, and is generating a very unique rapport with the individual. Right? Say keep it simple, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of parallels in that to like how I manage things. So, I mean, my experience with something new would definitely fall into payment as well, because it wasn't until I started writing the book and I started doing like the automatic writing, with Baphomet, that I started really seeing a lot of signals from payment. Like, everywhere I looked, like, it was payment this and payment that and payment here and payment there. And it's like, all right, like at first, like with the online shit, I was like, well, I mean, I literally label myself as an educational occult content creator. Like that's what I am, right? Like my content is specifically surrounded around the idea of the occult and being educational inside of the occult, right?
Sure.
By bringing people to the forefront like yourself or others to further explain how it is that they do things, right? And then I've told the story 1,000 times, but like I have the Occult Tarot, and which is based off the Ars Goetia and something else. And I sitting here literally in this spot shuffling the deck. I'm like, whatever fucking card I take off the top is the next entity I'm going to work with. Right? So, because I'm big on tarot. If you guys, don't know, I'm big on tarot. I like oracle decks, tarot cards, all that shit. So I'm sitting here and I'm shuffling, and I set it down, and I flip the top card, and the top card's King Payment. And
how it works out.
For me, when I connected that with everything that I was seeing, like the 2 weeks prior, like, all right, I can't ignore it. Yeah. Like, I'm being called, and I didn't realize at the time that
Payman is patron to the arts, to creativity, to literature, things like that. I didn't realize it at the time. It was actually somebody in this community that had pointed it out to me. That, hey, that makes sense because Payman, is patron to these particular aspects of our lives. I was like, oh, okay, well, now it makes a hell of a lot more sense. I want to write a book. I'm writing a book. Payman decides he wants to work with me. Payman decided. I didn't decide. Right? I was happy with Baphomet.
Right.
But yeah, Payman started fucking poking his goddamn nose in it. And sadly, the only thing I got for Payman is that little card that's sitting right there. That's all I got. That was the card that I flipped up. I took it out of the deck and I put it on the altar. Finding a fucking altar cloth with the sigil of Payman is not easy. It's not easy. If it's not Baphomet, if it's not the sigil of Baphomet, which is like the universal thing for fucking Satanism, like any other fucking sigil is like, goddamn. I would like to know where fucking Behemoth gets his shit, because this motherfucker is changing sigils behind him like underwear.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Just make it, bro. There you go. So that's where my initiation with Payman started, because of Payman. It's listening. So with the Order of Baphomet, which is something completely segregated from everything that I talk about, generally speaking, I try not to push the Order of Baphomet, because the Order of Baphomet is something you need to be called to. Like it's if you feel that calling, if you feel that necessity, then you're going to ask those questions. You're going to want to, become part of that. And it's not like other orders that are like, oh, by the way, there's a yearly membership that you have to pay of $250. No, I don't want your fucking money. Keep your fucking money. I want you to learn. That's what I want. But the Order of Baphomet is designed specifically for that. Like, I don't push it because I want the people that are interested. They're the ones that are going to find it. The people that need to find it, they're going to find it. And so it was just interesting how how that shit kind of came about, because it was just, I'm not looking for it. It just happens. And I think that's a lot of the time, I think that's what should happen, is like, you don't necessarily have to look for it. So here's another thing that a lot of us forget about the left-hand path, everyone. And I mean, Nate, tell me if you agree or disagree. The energy and the power that you channel, that's your energy and your power that you're channeling. The power that you use, the magic that you create, that comes from inside of you. You are the conduit. You have the energy inside of you. You have access to the energy of the universe because you are part of the universe. These external entities, these things can help you focus for a particular necessity. Focus your energy, yours, not theirs, your energy, to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. But you're not grabbing power from them. Baphomet doesn't make me more powerful. Baphomet doesn't give me power. Baphomet's merely a focal point of what it is that I want to achieve. Balance.
No, I definitely I agree with that, and I've also seen in a parallel that it is external and it is internal for the most part. And just to kind of even distill that down even further, because ultimately I agree with you absolutely that we are extensions with our own divine spark. We have full potential within us, and that's actually even reflected in different conversations that I've had with different demonic kings, in saying, you know what, I can do this for you, and it's totally within my capacity. But you're right around the corner from being able to do it yourself. And there's been other things that I've recruited other intelligences to bring and herald their own influence into the world, into the matrix around me, to reshuffle the trajectory of things. But I've been reminded, saying, look, you have every capacity of being able to do this yourself. And there was an experience that I've had with Belial before, when I was calling upon him for assistance in a pretty complex situation. And in doing so, he reminded me of a few different things. He said, look, he goes, I can do it. I can definitely take care of that for you, but don't forget, like, you can do this yourself. And I'll be more than happy to show you how, or to remind you how to be able to do this very thing for yourself.
Yep.
And he also said, don't forget, because there's the difference, because the only difference between you and I in this moment of where we're at is experience-wise.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I'm happy to even call you brother. He goes, the same power that I have, you have. He goes, the only difference is that I've been in the trenches longer than you have in wielding this.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, my wisdom would far exceed where you're at right now. But do not doubt, and do not forget, and do not shoot yourself short that everything that I can do, you can do. You can reach down deep inside of you, and you have full access to the same capabilities, the same potential that I have, that they all have.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you bring that up, because it's not cut and dry, and it is. I think that it can go down a rabbit hole of complexity, but ultimately, that is the beautiful dark secret, is that we are all extensions of eternity. And when you recognize that within yourself, you can harness that and you can apply it with full conviction.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, speaking about this in particular, it's kind of reminding me about, and also talking about movies. I was watching just a little segment of Pumpkinhead, even with my wife in bed last night, and it's when Lance Henriksen is in the witch's little cabin right there on the swamp, and he's brought his dead child there, and he's talking with her about, tapping into the spirit of vengeance to get revenge for what was done to his son, and she's like, well, look, you need to go to this old fucking pumpkin patch graveyard, and you need to fucking dig this thing up and bring it back here, and then there's some things I gotta do to it. And he's like, well, how will I know? And she stops him. She just looks at him. She says, you'll know. And that reminded me of not too long ago, I was watching this other movie. It's not Hansel and Gretel. It's Gretel and Hansel. Little retake on it.
Yeah.
But the witch there, she's now getting into this conversation about the craft with it must be Gretel, the girl in there. But she's getting into small semantics about having this broom work and reflect her intentions and actually manifest this power. And this girl's just sitting here scratching her head. She's just like, and she stops her and says, look, she goes, think less, my dear, and no more. And there's something that's strong, that comes with putting yourself in that omnipotent aspect. Some people call it your higher self, but it's getting into that raw, connected intelligence that flows through everything. It supersedes the lower mind of thought. When you put yourself into that higher context of just being one with it, knowing, and the conviction that comes with that, that's when real magic manifests, when real magic flows through your desire and your will. When you don't sit there and try to intellectually thought fuck it.
Yep.
How am I going to get this to do, and get lost in the trivial maze of logic and rationality, but knowing the power that's there. And that comes back around full circle into what Belial was talking about. You need to trust in what you're really fucking made of, and what you have access to, and what lies underneath the surface of all this illusion. And that's what I love about what you said, is that we are the conduits. We have this ability. Sometimes these spirits, they act like a Dumbo's magic feather. Sometimes you're thinking that you need the sigil to do it, and sometimes they'll come back later and say, you know what? Like, I didn't even get started yet. That was you. And you were holding a magic feather, and you were able to fly. You were able to make the impossible possible. And I have seen other things of legitimately tapping in to these intelligences and watching them work autonomously. But it just comes back around even into the matrix of the center of that figure eight. No matter how many times you loop it around, of going, the magic comes from the individual. Even in the operations that I do, I am the black priest in that moment. I am the liaison between the worlds. And what goes through my lips and the desire and my will, and being able to encapsulate that and become that Nexion with full conviction, opens the floodgates of power. And it's a funny journey of discovering this power for oneself, because there's so much doubt, there's so much fear. I got so far to go, or I can't do it without this entity. And no, there's a lot to be said by with what you said, man, which is that this comes through us. We are the fucking flux capacitor for the impossible.
You damn right. You damn right. Like, it's 100%. And understanding, your balance. I will always come back to balance. Your balance inside of the equation.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I see a comment by Mark 5. I haven't read your comment, Mark 5, but seeing your name alone kind of triggers certain things, not negatively. You have people like Mark 5, which are soldiers of the light, right? I give the man credit, because he is in a chat right now that is full of 18 fucking, people of the left-hand path, and he is the only, Christian among the group. And yet he's still here consistently. But you can't be light all the time. Like I said, we are the balance, everyone. That is the purpose of our existence. We create balance. Let that sink in. The things that you do, your acts in learning and creating, we are outnumbered. But though some may want to war with us,
as of this moment, we're not at war. You'll have people like your John Ramirez's and the, you know, you call the evangelical extremists, that as I like to call them, that want to instigate, you know, violent activity, you know, of their masses towards us. But we're not there. There's no need for violence. We are the balance. And just as, you know, Nate has kind of confirmed, the energy flows through you. You are a conduit. And what does a conduit do? What's the definition of a conduit? A conduit takes energy from an external source and focuses it. We are the focal point. We give that energy focus. For me, it's balance. For Nate, right now, it might be something different. He might be working with a different entity. It's almost guaranteed he's working with a different entity. I don't think he's working with Baphomet. You know, but that's his focus. That's where he's taking that energy and he's pointing it forward. Learn as much as you can. I'm not telling you don't read books and things like that. That would be frivolous, irresponsible, and just plain ignorant of me to sit here and tell you not to read a book. I'm writing one, for fuck's sake.
Right.
Right? Learn as much as you can. But also understand that a lot of what happens needs to come from you. A lot of what you create is just that. It's you creating something. Okay? That's the point. You are creating a connection where there wasn't one. Now, entities like, for example, Payman can send you little signals, right? Like on the internet or a flip of the card or whatever. If you don't take that in, it means nothing. If you ignore those signals, if you ignore those signs, it means what you put into it. And if you don't put anything into it, it doesn't mean anything. So what happens when you don't put anything into yourself? What happens when you think that all the energy that you produce comes externally? What happens if you don't put energy into something, it means nothing. So what do you think happens when you don't put energy into yourself?
Absolutely.
Understand that you are equally as important as the entity that you're working with, if not more so, because you're the one calling on that entity. Pyman can send me hundreds of thousands of messages saying, work with me. But if I don't work with Pyman, there's nothing Pyman can do to make me work with him. I am the one that ultimately makes the decision to work with or not work with whatever entity I choose to work with. So if you have that power, think about it. You have that power. That is your power to wield. Who you decide to work with is who you decide to work with, and then you can channel that. You can become the conduit for that. But if you decide not to work with it, it has no power. So understand your own value. Understand your own importance. You are the key. Not Belial, not Pyman, not Baphomet. You. You are the key. There's much we can learn from each other, from the entities that we work with, from the experiences that we have while working with entities, through and between each other. There's much that we can learn. But at the end of the day, that starts with you. It doesn't start with the entity that you choose to work with.
100%, man. I could not agree more. Especially in a lot of infernal alliances. The power only respects power. They don't work with the submissive, but they do respect the power and wanting to forward that power, to build it. And that's where balance comes in, that you were talking about. Easy to come at it from out of balance. It's easy to come at some of these entities a little too submissive, crawling up, please help me. And then there's others that come at it with the full-blown blasting rods and the conviction of, no, you're going to do my will under the name of Adonai and Tetragrammaton and the Most High, and fucking, they're like, the fuck you, fuck we are. But when you come at it with your own power and you come at them with that respect of what they embody and what they are, then there's the balance of that spectrum. You find yourself in the same vibrational synchronicity, and that's where it becomes complementary.
Mm-hmm.
And if they see that power being embodied in you, and they could see that you're wanting to do something with it, then they're happy to give you those keys. Here's the information. Here's the roadmap. You might do great things with it, or you might go walk off a fucking cliff with it, but you're asking for it, and I'll give it to you. I mean, that's the plus and the danger of it. It's beautiful. You're accountable for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, just like you said, it's that you have to be able to step up to that plate by you claiming and invoking and applying your own power and putting that in motion. That is the magic carpet for many of these entities to be able to be in motion, to be able to breach the veil,
Mm-hmm.
to be what they are.
Yep.
Because power is nothing if it's not being applied. Then it's nothing.
Exactly. Like knowledge.
You could have like a security program. What is that security program doing if it's not in active motion on a computer doing what it's fucking made for?
Exactly.
That's what these beings want. They want any type of reason to be able to be, to exist, do what they were fucking, what they are created, what they exist to be. And they're more than happy to take those opportunities through those that create them. And yeah, I mean, it's not that this path isn't wrought with danger. I mean, it's a dangerous fucking path, but I love it because it's for those that want to claim responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for what they tap into and what they do with it. And yeah, I mean, you can have endless Christians which are right in saying, you know what, these things are dangerous. They'll probably kick your ass, and for most people, these things probably will kick your ass. They'll chew you up.
Yep.
And fucking leave you bleeding on the side of the road because you just weren't fucking. You were not prepped at being able to step onto the platform with a lot of these things. But does it mean that everybody is? No, of course not. There's many people who go through these relationships and they escalate and they do great things with it. But it all comes down to what you said in many different contexts, which is the power comes through you and you have to grab that by the balls and own it and wield it and put it forth. And there's so many little keys that open those doors in just the practice of magic once you start to realize that the conviction of what you're doing is real. And when you give yourself over to that 150,000%, everything unlocks. Everything unlocks. But once you start creeping off the road with fear and doubt of your own power, fear of will it work, or maybe it won't work, but there's something that just blasts open and destroys all barriers once you own that with 100% conviction. It's just like those witches even kind of said in between the lines in those films. Like, don't think. Fuck this. Know about it. Own it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know
Yeah.
when you decide to own it. And those are some of the little caveats that I love about just occult power and putting it
Mm-hmm.
into motion with practical results.
Mm-hmm.
It's these little things that it just comes to be the power.
Exactly.
Open it up.
See, Mark 5 says, I see wisdom and understanding is more valuable than power. You have to understand there is power in wisdom and there is power in understanding. I personally feel that you can't have one without the other. If you have wisdom, you have power. Why do you have power through wisdom? Because people come to you for your wisdom, which makes you powerful.
Yeah,
what is
wisdom is knowledge having been applied. It's
Exactly.
knowing what to do or what not to do, which is power.
Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
You know, what we do isn't for the sake of power in and of itself. We're not looking to become, most of us. I have to say most of. There's some of us that are in this for the wrong reasons, but I would have to say most of us. Most of us aren't looking for power's sake. We're looking for power over ourselves. We're not looking for power over you or power over other people, because that's just a frivolous pursuit. We're looking for power over ourselves, because when you have power over yourself, okay, let's talk about the psychology of it. Let's be honest. Okay? Me right now, if you look at me, like, I have makeup that's completely messed up and I look like I look like a fucking crackhead right now, right? Because I've been wearing this makeup for the last few hours and the oils on my face are making everything go all over the face and I'm like, nah. But if you look at Nate, look at how he's sitting. Look at the position that he's in. Let's talk about the psychology of it. You look at Nate. Nate is in a position of power. Simply by the way he's sitting. He's not in a defensive position. He's sitting straight up. His arms are to his side, right? Everything in psychology that we can learn about human behavior says that Nate is sitting in a position of power. Nate is confident in what it is that he's saying. He believes what it is that he is saying. And it's not to have control over you. He's not trying to have control over you. He's just here to have a conversation. But by the simple subconscious movement of his body, you can tell that Nate is in a position of power. Nate is in a comfortable position. He understands that he's in a safe place. He doesn't feel threatened. Nate probably, by his fucking size, doesn't feel threatened by many things. Nate's a big dude. But when you look at those things and you take those things into consideration, he understands how to apply himself. He's making sure, for example, just look at his lighting. He's visible. You can see him. You can hear him clearly. He has a good microphone. All of these things play a part. They're not coincidences. They're not frivolous points that are overlooked and just kind of thrown in there. Nate knows exactly what he's doing and how to do it. 100% unequivocally. Which, on top of that, doesn't just speak to the power that he feels internally, but the intelligence that the man holds. These are things that, as human beings, we pick up on like this subconsciously. So, who are you going to be drawn further to? Myself, which has fucked up makeup, or Nate? Nate, of course, logically. And that's no insult to myself. I'm not trying to insult myself.
Hell no.
I'm merely pointing out the fact of the matter. Right? All of these things are done intentionally, and it's the same thing through magic. Magic is intentional. Intention. Everything you do with an intention. You don't do it because it just looks good, because it's for you. It's not for everyone else.
You know what, Nate? One thing I'd like to do with you, if you're open to it, if you're open to
Sure.
it, I think it would be cool if you and I later on we could discuss on what it is that we would do. But if we did a dual ritual live and just kind of like let people see the contrast, the same purpose, the same intention. We focus on the intention, which is why we'd have to talk about it, right? We
Sure.
focus on the intention that we're going to put forth and who it is that we're going to call upon. But just so people can see the contrast, would you be willing to do that?
You know, I think there's a lot to talk about in that, but no, I don't have any initial objections about it. Yeah, I think there's huge contrast in just about everything that anybody does. But I think for illumination point and illustrations that come with it, yeah, it could be pretty good.
I agree. I think that would definitely be the point. It would be the same intention, but I would like people to see the difference, like how things are done. Do the same intention, but how I do it compared to how you do it. Right? And here's another thing. So I don't sell rituals. He does. I won't do a ritual for you. So don't ask. You want one done? Ask him, not me.
Definitely open to talking about certain types of rituals.
It's just so, like I've said before in the past, like the thing is like the rituals that I do them to learn, right? So for most people, one, it'd probably be quite boring because there's not a lot of talking that I do, because I do a lot of listening. And two, it has to be something that I feel inside of me. And personally, though I am empathetic to people's situations, I don't feel that I'm in a position where I can take that empathy and apply it to a ritual that I'm doing. If that makes sense.
You know, and that's some of the harder things about doing ritual for hire, so to speak. In fact, I have certain methods that I'll have the client that has to engage in, because there's the attachment really is on the client side. It's just kind of like what you're talking about. If there's a huge, you know, they're wanting to bring back maybe a lost lover or something, or to have this certain acquisition, that's not my desire. That's theirs.
Yep.
So there's a process of things that I can have them assist me with to be able to fully purge themselves and alchemically change that want and desire into an alchemical change of surety and expectation, and it's coming, it's gonna happen, everything's good. But it does get complex, and just even talking about the dynamics of ritual, one of the reasons why there's been a long time of why I'd never filmed ritual, for the most part, is because it's all eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's going on, even the things that I could see, even in my own scrying vision, just about nobody else can see.
Mm-hmm.
There may be somebody that's in the operation with me that may have the same experience and engagement in person that I'm sharing, but for the most part, it's the client isn't going to see that. Even when you're doing something like tarot for somebody, the client and most people want to see something very flashy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it can't be just you. It's got to be the cards and all these 9,000 candles and all these other things going on. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's a great facilitator. It definitely aids, I would say, atmospherically, and there's a lot of things that it helps with. But is it necessary? There's been plenty of rituals that I've done at my computer desk, in my fucking underwear, with no candles, and it's just me and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's a simple sigil working, or just direct communion with that intelligence. But then there's very elaborate workings that I've gone through that are beautiful and just intense in every aspect. And there's a lot of power there too.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. It's funny the dynamics of which it all comes through, and it is that conduit of the through the practitioner and their experience and their own comprehension of the mechanics of these arts and their own refinement.
Yep.
Just on their own journey of getting these things to click. But
yeah, I think it's
I love it,
important.
man.
There's one thing that you said that I think is important to kind of touch on. So you notice, guys, that Nate's talking about doing ritual work in front of the computer in his underwear, right? Now, for as funny as that might sound comical, it's important to take heed in that, because that represents a certain understanding of what it is that he's working with, how it is that he needs to work with it, that doesn't require the amount of focus that something like this is going to set up. You don't need something like this. And this isn't elaborate, by the way. I call this my demonic corner, right? Like an after school special, right? It's my demonic corner in my office. Right, so you don't need something like that. You don't need something as elaborate as, like, for example, what Behemoth X has. And Behemoth X, for all intents and purposes, he is bringing you the full experience when you watch a video from him, right? Like, there's
beautifully.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a full fucking experience, like that. You need surround sound and fucking like a big ass fucking 65-inch goddamn fucking screen to actually fully appreciate what the fuck it is that. Behemoth X, that motherfucker records shit in 4K. So.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Right? But you don't need that. That's not a necessity. We're talking about practicality, right? We're talking about applied practicality. And applied practicality, where's applied practicality? Wow, fucking words. Jesus Christ. I just fucked that up. God damn. Where is applied practicality? Thank you, mouth. When it comes to the left-hand path, it's up here. It's up here. That's where it's at. Here and here. That's all you need. That's it. Like, if you need something to focus on, draw a fucking star and put a circle around it and stick it in front of you. Right? Open up Paint on fucking Word, like your Microsoft Paint, and just fucking draw a fucking pentagram and fucking focus on it. That's literally all you need. You don't need any of this. Like, is it cool to look at? Oh, yeah, it's fucking cool to look at. So, for those that don't know, that thing on my wall, that's not a fancy piece of wood. No, it's a goddamn rug. It is a rug that I spent $45 on Killstar and nailed it to my wall.
Beautiful.
That's it. That's what the fuck it is. And why did I do that? Because the flag that I have that was half the price has the fucking sigil at the angle. And I was like, oh, it's fucking irritating me. It's an aesthetic decision, not a necessary one. It was for aesthetics. That's why I did aesthetics for me. You don't need aesthetics. All you need is up here. And that's where the power comes from. The power comes from inside of you. Even if you're channeling, you're becoming a conduit for something external. It has to start with you. It can't start if you don't open the door.
I agree. That's the beautiful part of it, is that it does start with the agent of that system, of whatever it is that you're plugging yourself into. It's the witch, it's the black magician, the Satanist, but everything begins and is put in motion through that individual. Even whether it's something that cascades into power that is external and autonomous phenomenon, everything is kickstarted through the individual.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, man. 100%. So
I'm under the understanding, because I've seen conversations between Behemoth and Scarlet in the chat. So you guys are actually building an actual temple in your house, yeah?
Man, it's for my Four Thrones operation. So it'll probably be about another 2 months, I'd say, before everything's done. But here before too long, I do want to get some good progressionary pics together to show just how it is coming along. But
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking sick, man. It's gonna be amazing.
So, would you be willing to explain to everybody what that is, the Four Thrones?
Sure. The Four Thrones. It's a catalytical operation that I do. It's my main focus. It's my obsession. But it's these four entities. It's Azazel, a Maimon, Belial, and Abaddon. Through those four quadrants, I ritualize 33 different constructive rites that are all foundations in a person's life that is looking to be the best version of themselves. And it had an interesting evolution over the years. A while back, I was just doing ritual for hire for all different types of initial things. It just kind of started to snowball bigger and bigger, but I saw like what a lot of people were hitting me up for. I thought was just trivial and a big waste of time. And I was just totally disheartened, going, this power can be applied to limitless. There's so much that you could be putting this towards besides trying to get next month's fucking rent, or revenge on your fucking ex-girlfriend, or this small time bullshit. And especially those are things that I have any desire in doing. But it started to elevate into, well, what are those things? What are those things that should be ritualized? What are those key components that a person would need to secure things in the foundation of success? And over a few years, I was able to identify 33 different various components that together comprise this foundation of success and ascension. So every month, I work on one of those that I call a grand rite. And I ritualize that for coming into being, not only for myself and my wife, but for everybody who is sympathetically linked to these rites that I do through a central altar. And what I'm working on is the temple to have the permanent placement of not only the mandala that I use in these workings on a monthly basis, but what will be the vessels that go into, and typically most magicians will work in what's called like a triangle manifestation. I work in what are diamonds of manifestation. And so the floor of this temple is being laid out in black marble with a custom inlay of the mandala that I use in the Four Thrones rites, as well as each of the four diamonds of manifestations, the quadrants, to hold those large vessels of each of those deities that I work with. But it's an intense undertaking, man, and it's something that I've been doing since 2016 on a monthly basis, and I've never missed a month working on these grand rites. There's 33 of them, and every time that I come to the full apex of that 33rd rite, I just start over again at the first one and keep refining that process, keep tightening it up, and re-ritualizing those rites over and over and over. But yeah, man, it's hit a level of intensity and dedication that only seems right of where this is going and where it's been and the huge trajectory of where it's all going that a large temple was appropriate for it. So I'm stoked to share it, man, as it keeps coming up, man, because it's there's nothing like it out there.
It sounds it. It sounds it, and I'm excited to see it. I am.
I'm excited to show it, man. It's gonna be beautiful, and I think it'll appropriately reflect the intensity and the power that is taking place within that temple. So
Nice.
I definitely thought that it would be appropriate to reflect it on the intensity of the caliber that it is. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked
Nice.
to bring it forward.
I'm excited to see it. So, one thing I wanted to bring up now that because I have you here. So a lot of people have been asking. Everybody knows that I'm trying to create kind of like an occult unification or a left-hand path unification. Trying to bring everybody together, right? And that there's going to be seats and people sitting in certain positions that are going to be, making decisions. And everybody keeps asking, who's on those seats? So, because Nate is here, I'm going to tell everybody in the community, as of right now, who is currently sitting on those seats and who is going to be sitting on those seats until the three of us that are involved dictate whether or not other people are going to be on more seats. So the three people that, after much deliberation, much thinking, that are going to be on this council, so to speak, for lack of a better term, is myself, Nate Bales, and Scarlet Bales. The three of us are going to be the ones that are going to be managing the whole thing. Now, if more people come to light that we dictate our good fit, then we may fill more seats. But after thinking about it very heavily, I needed people that were objective, level-headed, did not have a vendetta, were not trying to foster some kind of, seat of power and control over other people, that have their own things going on that they care about, and equally only want to help people. And after thinking about it, I presented Nate and Scarlet with the idea, and they have both accepted. Now, what that looks like in the future, none of us know, but it is a growing idea that is in process. The logistics still are unclear.
I think that's a good way to put it. Just kind of see where it goes, and but the intention has been planted. I'm just gonna kind of follow this thing out, see where it goes.
Pretty much. But I've had a lot of people asking, like who's on the seats? Who's going to be running it? Like who? And it's like, probably a good idea, like with having you like online, like to mention it,
Right.
Yeah. So like nothing, like there is somebody that I have that is currently working on a website. Currently, it is only going to be an online thing. There's no like, we're not like fucking getting a building and shit. Like it's not nowhere even close to that. There is somebody that is equally passionate about the left-hand path and unifying us. That is assisting without any expectation of being a member or like that, a part of like a council or anything like that, but simply wants to help. that is assisting with the development of the back end of the website. I'm working on the front end of it. Currently, the way that I foresee the foreseeable future is merely going to be a position of the three of us are going to review information available online. We're going to sit there and talk about it and say, okay, this one seems good, this one doesn't. And we're going to give everyone resources to grow and learn and kind of move deeper into the left-hand path and what the left-hand path is about, with three people that have very distinct styles of worship and practice, agreeing on, you know, particular information that's available online. Now, one thing that we also agreed upon, so none of my personal stuff is going to be on that list. None of Nate's personal stuff is going to be on that list because it's a conflict of interest. It's going to be external resources that all of us agree upon that says, okay, this makes sense. This is logical. I think people should probably look at this for starting out or maybe moving in a little bit more advancedly. That's what the website's going to cover initially. Okay. And from there, we'll see what happens. It's a process. But that's it, man. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted the community to know. You know, I know this is a surprise for you. I know I didn't talk to Nate about this before doing this. I didn't mention that I was going to say anything. But I figured it appropriate. Hopefully it's not an issue.
Oh, man, all good.
So I'm putting you on the spot, I know. So
I think it'll be interesting being able to see where this pans out to. And everything starts off with an idea, and then just kind of see where things evolve and materialize, and the trajectories just grow from there. And you know, it's meant to be something positive, and nothing else besides that. It's gotta serve a constructive purpose, and there's nothing else. No other agendas behind there. There's no other bullshit. But just to give a little clarity on the path, some resources if can be, so that people can kind of take what's available and draw their own conclusions.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you being willing to, you know, jump on board and be a part of it. It's the beginning of a realization of something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And having you and Scarlett, you know, be on board and be willing to kind of help me kind of like help us, you know, as a community kind of push forward and have a base to come to, you know, is extremely important. And I appreciate it greatly.
Oh, man, absolutely. I'm excited.
Me too,
Definitely
man.
Excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, same. So with that being said, Nate, tell everybody where they can find you.
You know, the best place to find me is my website. It's natebales.com. It's just kind of a central hub for anything that I got going on, occult related. You can find out all of the important dynamics of Four Thrones, what it is, what it can offer for you, and that's it, man. NateBales.com.
Rock on. Keep it simple. All right, everyone, that is going to be it. Thank you all for being here. Greatly appreciate it. That is the end of this broadcast for this Saturday evening. Hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll catch y'all fuckers later. Peace out.
What a great night, man. Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem, man.